Hello, I'm Alexander Prent, representing AuScope, and in today's webinar, TERN, supported by NCRIS, and KurrawongAI will be talking about using GitHub to manage vocabularies. We'll be starting with a presentation by Edmund Chuck from KurrawongAI, and he'll present us with an overview of vocabularies. That then will be followed by representatives of TERN, Kurrawong, and Guru. Please let us know if you have any questions about the webinar or have any feedback, want to know more about controlled vocabularies using GitHub. Thanks.
Hello everyone, I'm Edmund Chuck from KurrawongAI. We're a small company based in Brisbane, Australia, and we mainly focus on data standards, data management, data governance, and data integration. Our clients are mainly in government as well as the research data infrastructure space, and today I'll be giving a talk on vocabularies. Yeah, thanks. I'm just going to be providing, I guess, a bit of context around why to use and adopt vocabularies and some of the work that I've been doing at KurrawongAI and some other things. I can't remember what I put in the slides. I'll just start and let's just see what happens. So why vocabularies? Why invest in the upfront effort and time in adopting and using vocabularies? Basically, in any data pipeline, whether you're like a data submitter or an aggregator, along that data pipeline, somewhere you're going to be aggregating data. So in the worst case, it's something like this in this diagram where data suppliers such as A, B, and C are supplying data to the data aggregator, but the data aggregator only understands, cubes in this case. So this is very bad. This is the worst case where the aggregator has to spend the most amount of effort to make sense of the data, to integrate it, harmonize it, and get it into a state where you can actually work on the data and get and do like analytical queries or whatever you need to do. And where we are at now, where we're just starting to adopt vocabularies, is it makes it a little bit easier for the aggregator. Usually these data suppliers, they're still submitting data in different forms and different shapes, different formats, different shapes, but maybe the terminology is close enough within the domain that they do have some kind of standard. And within the standard, there's these different kinds of classification schemes, code lists, that kind of stuff. And now we've converted those things into vocabularies and have adopted it within these data sets. Now it makes the aggregator's job a little bit easier. They can identify and see these code lists, and the code lists are already harmonized, but they still have to convert the data into the same kind of format to get that unified view. But starting on this vocabulary journey does enable you to, it gives you a state where it's easier for you to adopt more standardized data models in the future. So for now, you're adopting vocabularies and you're standardizing terms and all that within your community. And then down the line, you can then look at adopting more richer and internationally accepted data models. And now everybody is submitting cubes as well as using vocabularies. And now for the aggregator, it's a very easy job. They just basically ingest the data, and in most cases, they can already start querying the data across data sets. Maybe they want to do some other transformation on top of it, but it makes the job a lot easier. So with a lot of our work with clients and things, and in the vocab space, we have, I guess, a few recommendations that we just like to share. So having vocabularies is better than not having any vocabularies. Just start creating them, creating new ones, looking at what exists in the community and start reusing and subsetting existing vocabularies and make them your own. Use persistent identifiers for everything. So if you haven't engaged with the Australian Government Linked Data Working Group yet, I encourage you to do so. You might meet other people within your community that are trying to do the same thing. The working group also allows you to, so they have a service, I guess, where you can register for persistent identifiers for your work. And then more generally, you can also use another service called W3ID. And just get started. Create a GitHub account, create a repository, and just start creating vocabs. And what TERN's done is they're already very far into their vocabulary journey, so they've kind of optimized it, the repository structure to a view where it might look a bit overwhelming with all the files and everything, but it's working for them, for the maintainers of the vocab. Most of the time, the domain experts, the people that actually care about the content in the vocabs, don't really care about the structure too much. They can just what June showed earlier, is go to the term, click on the link, just edit the definition or whatever, make a pull request, and submit that. Or if they're not confident in editing the turtle files, at least they have access to the public repository and they can create issues there, just so that they can communicate with other members in the community or with the people maintaining the vocabularies. Set up governance arrangements, so things like that pull request workflow, having tests run, having things checked, having reviewers, all that kind of thing. Have those set up and then implemented using some technical solution such as GitHub Actions, so basically you have things set up and then you try to automate most of your work away. There is also this VocPub profile that the Australian Government Linked Data Working Group's working on, where it's essentially an opinionated standard of how to publish SCOS-controlled vocabularies. So there's required and recommended metadata in there that you can look at and follow, and the VocPub profile also provides a validator for you to use as well to ensure that your vocabulary that you're creating conforms to that VocPub profile. And so this is just a special version of the more general SCOS data model. It just promotes best practices, I guess, like metadata such as date created, modified, publisher, things like provenance information, things like all concepts or all terms must have a label and it must have at least a definition or something like that. So that's all detailed in there. And then the last step is probably actually publish it so that you can engage with your community and start having that conversation. To publish online, there's a few open source software that's available. The last two, I think, are mainly used, and they're very popular in Europe, Scosmos and Shovok. Scosmos is a very, it's for SCOS vocabularies, and Shovok is for vocabularies as well as ontologies and things. There's also Prez. So these are all on open source software. You can, if you're a technical person, you can adopt it, self-host it yourself, and publish your vocabularies yourself. Prez is both a viewer for humans, as well as it provides a set of machine readable APIs, but it does it in a special way where it tries to follow standards wherever possible. So it reuses API standards as well as different data model standards from the W3C and so on. We recommend the bottom-up approach. So just start create the vocabs, start using it locally within your team, then slowly branch out to your departmental level or your institutional level. And then once you've reached that stage and you've engaged with the community and there is an interest in reusing those same terms, start engaging in working groups and things at the national level. And if those are useful, you can then bring it to the international level. So I think TERN has been doing that, and TERN initially developed a set of vocabularies for their data integration platform. Internally, they created an ontology based on this thing called SOSA/SSN. And then eventually that became, the TERN vocabularies started gaining wider use. And then this standard called Australian Biodiversity Information Standard was created, which reused the data model that TERN created. And now that's all governed within the AuSBIG, the Australian Biodiversity Information Governance Group. Same kind of things that have been happening in other domains. So in the geological space, there's the different departments within within Australia's states and territories, and then for things that are popular, like, I don't know, borehole status and things, they can then push it up to the national level, to the GGIC, and then eventually maybe CGI at the international level. Same kind of things happening in the spatial area as well. A lot of our work in the project that we do at Kurrawong involves vocabularies, but probably the things that are interesting to you guys are the work that we're doing for geological survey of South Australia, Western Australia, and Queensland. So they're starting probably where you are now, where they've created a repository and they've just started creating vocabularies just within their departments. And eventually you can see if they see that they're creating things that are common across these departments, they can then start teaming up and going to the next level. Probably just some showcases on PRES deployments. That's the open source software that I mentioned earlier. I'm only mentioning this because a lot of this, if you need to publish it, you do need to be technical, I guess. You can publish it through Research Vocabularies Australia, or if you do want to publish it in a more customized way with your special branding and that kind of stuff, you can contact us for help. We do provide commercial support for PRES. And through all this work, we have found a lot of interesting things that people need within the VocPub profile. So for example, in the NERC setup here, there are these special metadata terms that we found that are useful. So we've folded them back into VocPub and now back into PRES as well. So if your data is following VocPub and you use PRES, it will show it. It should show it as well, perfectly fine for any other viewer that understands SCOS and more generally understands RDF. And then one of our latest work, I think I saw John in the call here as well, from Geological Survey of Queensland. We've made a recent development release of PRES version 3, which serves their vocabs that they have in their GitHub repository, as well as some other kinds of data. I will quickly just show you what it looks like. It's very similar to what TERN's got. It's just got a listing of vocabs. You can click on them. Within this vocab, there's then a bunch of other terms. And then you can then go down and actually click on the terms and look at the definitions and that kind of thing. Something special about PRES is it initially was a thing for vocabularies, but now it also has the capability of doing data cataloging, and as well as spatial data cataloging. So for in GSQ's case, we did publish some spatial data, and you can see it's coming up in here, and you can go to data sets and do all that. So that's pretty much the next level where in your journey, if you do adopt vocabularies, you can step up to those other international standards and adopt things like DCAT, GeoSparkle, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, use and reuse vocabularies, try and get community adoption, and adopting vocabularies brings you to a good state to move on and adopt more richer semantic data models that result into knowledge graphs in the end. I think that's it. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Edmund. That's great to get a bit of a wider overview of that. Now, after that great presentation by Edmund, let's hear from Guru of the Terrestrial Ecosystems Research Network, how GitHub is used in creating controlled vocabularies there.
AuScope is deep underground on the Earth, so we are on the surface, the Earth's surface, and the focus is on the terrestrial, not a ocean thing. So we have a fair bit of so the diversity is quite high. So we collect data, model derived, remote sensing to human observation to sensor derived observation. That also as a time series, ad hoc observation to opportunistic observation to just a surveillance monitoring as well. So when we started this project, we need to bring these data, harmonize them, somewhat relatable. So that is why, we thought of vocabularizing a fair bit of the thing. So a fair bit of the vocabulary we developed is, highly influenced from the semantic sensor network ontology. If you look at the semantic sensor network ontology, it has got a platform, and then the sensor, and then the observer property, and et cetera. So that's exactly the pattern we follow. How we do is, for any observation, it's collected as a platform. Either it is hosted, the sensors are hosted on that platform. It will have an observer property that is a parameter, and then the parameter will have a unit of measurement. So everything is basically, can be vocabularized. For example, in our case, data is collected at the ecological site, that is like 100 meter plot. We even call the ecological site as a platform. So that is basically ecological site is an instance of a platform, and then any project which collect the thing, this site, actual site, basically instance of that ecological site, that classification. So for example, the remote sensing, it is the classification is I think the mobile platform, because it's traveling continuously. And then we collect data with the in-situ stationary platform. That is, we call it as like an in-situ platform as well.
Guru, are you sharing your screen or you're just talking?
I'm just talking.
Okay, right, thanks.
I didn't realize that this is such a big seminar. This is the, I thought that is a couple of people, and then otherwise I would have, whip up a presentation. I'm really sorry. I didn't know that this is such a big gathering.
It's all good. I think it should be a bit casual. I think it's good.
Yeah. Rowan posted it on the vocabulary interest group. That's why there's a wider group than what you thought. Okay.
Right. Yeah. I was not aware of that. Sorry, Leslie. I'm happy to send you a slide. I can make a slide.
No, don't bother. Keep going.
Okay. So that is our main motivation of building the vocabularies. Later, so the actual work, June will show about is basically on a particular project. We are working with the Department of Climate Change, Environment and Water, the federal government. So what we are doing is, as part of the regional land care program, so overall TERN, so TERN is developing about 18 modules, monitoring modules, protocols. And then, so as part of that work, we have standardized the representation of those data using, the ontology we built. And then, so we wanted to standardize like an end-to-end standardization from a data collection to the publication aspect. So as part of that work, what we have done is, as part of each of the protocol, we have vocabularized what are the parameters they are measuring, and then the methods that was used in the protocol, so that everything that is available in the protocol is machine readable aspect. So as part of, so that is why we think about the fair bit of the governance, because at the end of the project we wanted to hand over all the artifacts to the department. So we wanted to look at more at the flexible way of managing all this aspect side of the thing, so that it is easier for the department to manage, as well as to get a bit of any input from the community as well. So we tried a couple of tools as well. So for example, the ARDC runs a really good tool, Pool Party, which is a commercial product to manage all these things. So if you're like one person who is managing or editing, authoring the protocol in a vocabulary, that is fine. And it has got a bit of a, it's a cost-based, very centric to the concept scheme level. And then it reduces a bit of a flexibility for us, especially when you're communicating and everything. And then the versioning at the concept level was is issue when we look at it. I was told that now it does it because I haven't tested it. So when we looked at it, at the concept level, versioning was a bit of an issue. And then, so that's why, so if we look at the requirement side of the thing, we wanted like a easy community engagement, and then the complete transparency in how it is managed, and then the tracking of the complete changes, and then the complete end-to-end pipeline from the creation to the publishing of the vocabularies. So all this, we can do it in GitHub. GitHub does exactly that for the software. We thought that why not for, to manage the vocabulary kind of a thing. So that is what Edmund and June started doing, and then they build the complete. We start with a small thing, and then we fine-tune the bit of a pipeline, and then everything works fine. So now we have vocabularized the complete, all the 18 protocols, everything is part of that GitHub. How it is automated is, if we add anything, if I push, if it goes to the pull request, then I merge to the main branch, is automatically run the complete pipeline, push it into the demo portal of the RVA, and even push it into the production version of the RVA. RVA is the Research Vocabulary Australia portal managed by the ARDC to publish all the vocabularies, which is a fantastic place to go and look for vocabularies in any of the domain. So that is completely built as an automated pipeline, end-to-end pipeline. So with that context, I will hand over to June, so that she can showcase what she has done, and then go through a bit of a structuring of how it is done, and then everything.
Okay, thanks, group. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions about the context?
Angus, did you want to say a bit about the AGN and what you run into, or you want to do that at the end? I think people just run into similar problems like you discussed with that having to deal with proprietary software and making the community possible to have some input and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I can say a couple of words just quickly. I guess us at the AGN, so coming from the more geochemistry side of it, we started trying to build a platform a couple of years ago now. And for that, we're obviously trying to standardize vocabularies. The way we've gone about that is firstly through looking for what existing publications there are out there already and trying to draw off existing databases where possible. It was actually probably personally quite surprising how limited that was. I sort of thought someone might have done that already. But what we've done a lot of the is maybe be a little bit more closed in that we've gone to been seeking out what we've called termed expert advisory groups, mainly from the university sector, of people who are working quite heavily in various regions of research that we're interested in, and then developing these vocabularies through them. And at this stage, we've put out a couple of publications about more one data model and one more general publication about the platform and idea itself. And they're starting to move towards more publications, and again, getting these hosted on the RVA so that everyone can access them. But yeah, we're a bit further behind, so yeah, quite happy to learn from you guys.
Hello, I'm Junrong, a software engineer working on TERN ontology and controlled vocabularies at the University of Queensland. Currently, I'm working on a government project to create controlled vocabularies for 19 field survey protocols. So what we are doing is to extract all of the concepts from documents and then create controlled vocabularies for them. So like the measurement of plant height or the observation of age class for faunas. Today, our presentation is about how to use GitHub to manage these big control vocabularies. Hope you will enjoy it.
So I will introduce our control vocabularies as well as the GitHub repository. So let me share my screen. Before talking about the repo, let's have a look at our control vocabularies first. So our controlled vocabularies have 5 sections. The first section is attributes in survey protocols. After that is categorical values in all of the protocols. And this section is the survey protocols. So it is a method of each protocol that is that contains instructions, equipment, and also appendixes for each module. And after that is the feature types, and also the observable properties that is organized by modules. So observable properties is the observations in this module. Okay, so we have 5 sections, and then go back to the GitHub repo. So this is a GitHub repo we're using. And in the README section, there is a general introduction of our project and the control vocabularies. And after that is the instructions of how to edit files, the concept files in browser and locally. So finally, we have the publishing introduction. So if you're interested in this one, maybe you can have a look. So in the repo, we have various folders and files. So each of them are designed for different purposes, but the main content is in this vocab files. So inside the vocab files, there are different folders as well. So you can see the structure is kind of the same as here. So we have 5 sections. And in the vocab files, we also have different folders for different sections. Yeah, so I have a local version of this repo. It is in VS Code. So it's open here. So inside the vocab files, there are different folders. Is there something in the chat? Oh no. Yeah. So it has different folders. So for our controlled vocabulary, it is very complex because we have concepts created for 19 protocols, survey protocols for this project. So we need to use different folders to separate them into different modules. So that is why we use many folders to separate the functions of controlled vocabularies. But if the controlled vocabularies is very small, like it only has one hierarchy and also like just have several concepts, then it is fine to use just one file to store all of the earlier concepts. Cool. So inside the controlled vocabularies, the first section is attributes by module. So if we click into some protocol, so you see for each module, they have specific attributes. So all of these attributes files are inside this folder, attributes concepts. And because the attributes are organized by modules, so the connection, the hierarchy is stored in this folder. So inside the basal area attributes, there is a collection file. So inside the collection file, there are 5 members for this collection. So which are the links to these 5 concepts. So that's for.
So can I ask a question? Sorry to interrupt. So you're using basically a tool on your computer that connects to the GitHub repository, and then you publish whatever is in the GitHub repository on the web page, right?
Yeah, so we will publish the turtle files in the GitHub to GraphDB first, and then the website will fetch data from GraphDB and then present on the browser.
Okay, so not all I understand, but yeah. Thanks. Please go on. Sorry to interrupt. Can talk a bit more later, maybe.
Yeah. And yeah, so similarly for properties, observable properties, we have a folder, observable property concepts. So all of the observations are listed here. So each of them has a single file with the information for each concept, like the source and definition, and also the label of the concept. And because concepts, observable properties are also organized by modules. So inside this folder, it has different modules and has a collection file. So these are the sub-protocols inside this protocol. So inside the sub-protocol, there is a collection file. So it is all of the observable properties in this sub-protocol. So you may notice that there is some difference between the attributes and properties organized way, because for properties, each property can have module-specific information. So like the feature type of this property and the value type of this property, it can vary from modules. So for each module, this value is module specific. So we use another file to store this kind of information. Yeah. So that's properties. And then for methods, so it's the same way, but the difference is that inside the collection turtle, there is the HTML content. So this content is from the protocol. It is instructions, equipment, plain text information. And this is a sub-protocol. Yeah, the same way, sub-protocol with content. And because we are working on this project with TERN Atlas, the TERN Atlas will provide us with external information like the categorical values. So we have another folder to manage the categorical collections. So each of the file is a categorical values collection. So all of the categorical values are listed here. Yeah, so from the browser, the view is like categorical collections. Yeah. So it's like this way. And for survey protocols, has a contents, introduction, definitions. Yeah. Instructions. And so that is our structures of the folders. Do you have some questions?
Yeah, I've got. Do you also store alternate labels or anything like that? Because I wonder if you, if you come across issues.
Yeah, we have the alternative labels. So it is like for observable properties, it has a pref label here. So this one, it doesn't have the pref label, but if we search for schools at label, yeah. So like for the growth form, the alternative label is like flora growth form, plant growth form. Yeah, so all of the related information are in these files.
Thanks.
And other question would be how does a how does the community interact with the terms that are not yet public or published? You mean how is the community giving feedback on the GitHub?
Yeah, so so if have a look at this file, this control vocabularies, so like in the observable properties, basal area, and in the basal page. So like for the field species name. So if someone is looking at this page and finds there's something wrong, so they can scroll down to the URL of the file. So if we click into the file, it will direct to the original file of this concept. And in this interface, click the edit, like change some details like field species name. If I want to just do some changes, add an empty space, and then propose the changes with a title and description and create another branch to propose the changes.
Okay, that looks really simple. Yeah, that's great.
But if someone proposes a change, what's then the process of that going through from them proposing it to that being accepted and put into your RVA vocabulary?
So once the changes are proposed, there will be a pull request here. And we will ask someone to review the changes. So if we approve the changes, it will go to a main branch. And next time when we make a new release, it will go to RVA and also like GitHub and also the website. Yeah, so that is in the GitHub actions here. So we have several GitHub actions. So like, I can take a demo of how to make changes. I can make a demo. So like, if I want to change the definition of this concept, this age class concept, so like if I want to delete the comma here, what I need to do is like in the GitHub. Also, this one is the example of editing locally. So in the browser, it is different, but it is more simple. So editing locally is like, I need to create a branch first. Okay, check out. So the branch name may be like fix age class definition. Okay. So a new branch is created. So here is the age class file. So if we want to delete the comma here, and then the changes are made here, and just stage the changes, and then like updated the definition of age class, and then commit the changes. So there is a publish the branch. So I publish the changes. So go back to the GitHub. In a pull request, there is a prompt. I can create a pull request, update the definition of age class, and left comments like updated the definition of age class, and create the pull request. So the options are like, I can ask someone to review these changes. So like if I can search for Guru is here. So I can tag Guru as the reviewer. So Guru can review the changes, and I can assign the to me. So that is the GitHub functions, and create the pull request. Yeah. So so once the pull request is created, Guru can review the changes in the files changed. So it is very good. The comma is deleted. So it is shown here. Yeah. And there you can notice that there is a test. So this test is checking the formatting of the files. So we are using the onto tools to format our total files. Yeah, so that is also a GitHub Actions. So when others are using GitHub Actions, they can add their own tests. Like if they want to add some shackle files to validate the data, validate the cultural vocabulary structures. So they can add any test they like using the GitHub functions. So our test is to test the formatting style of the file. Yeah. So that's a process of making changes, update the concept.
And no, that's really cool. And whenever a change is accepted, does that automatically make a new version, or can you have like small changes without actually it being reflected in the versioning of the vocabulary itself?
You mean like making the releases? Like,
yeah, I guess if you've got smaller changes happening like this, like someone might not realize, like this day to day, is there any kind of like versioning history or identification as these smaller changes are being made and added?
yeah. So basically, we will make a new release once there are couple of changes instead of just a minor change. Yeah. So like, if it is just fixing, so if it is very urgent, we'll make the release right now. But if it is not very urgent, like we will aggregate changes and make a new release. Yeah.
I'd just like to add a comment. I think Angus was talking about the history of like a concept, so it might be worthwhile to show the history of just one file, just to see how that concept evolved.
Yeah. So like for the age class, yeah.
Pick one of them.
There is a history. Yeah, it has all of the commits for this file. Like, and for each of the commit, you can click into to see the specific changes. So like here is a feature type is changed. And I remember there is a function that is the play. Yeah, so it is more clear. So like, what is the changes? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Right.
So there's always a pretty detailed record there of what changes have been made, and then when a bunch of changes have been accepted, you then decide if you bring about or publish a new version.
Yeah.
So that's good to know, I suppose, and people can then refer to the version they've been using in whatever they've been doing. Then a new version has a lot of changes. But then I think it's also important. Maybe you can look in the chat and address what Simon, do you wanna speak up and give your question to the group?
Does it require running working? No. So it is not required that everyone need to know Turtle or GitHub, because we have an ecologist. He's also working on this repo. So what he was doing is like he just click into, it's very slow. He just click into these vocab files and into the concepts folder, and click into each of the concept and review the definition part. Yeah. So what they need to do is just review the definition and make some plain text changes. So he doesn't need to understand Turtle, RDF, or like GitHub Actions. Oh yeah, he needs to learn how to make a new pull request. That is required.
So Simon, did it answer the question, or you want to ask it? Anything else? Yeah, I agree with you, Simon. It's good to have like a good commit notes.
Yeah, it was good commit notes.
Are you there, Simon?
He might not have a working microphone, but I agree that these things should be made.
Sorry, I was trying
Yeah.
to talk. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. That I was really just observing while you were showing that example of the history, that in order for it to be comprehensible, that pretty much depended on those commit notes being good.
That's true.
And that's, that's a habit which is really good for the community to adopt, although it doesn't always happen, as we know, in reality. But perhaps you're doing a good job there. But going back to the comment that you just made about just needing to change this plain text in this example you're showing here, that still requires that the person who's doing it be confident that what they're doing is in the right place, which implies a certain comfort level with the turtle files which are expressing the SCOT. So you obviously it's doing something more human friendly and robust would be a big development effort, and that's the kind of thing that Pool Party is there to do in the first place. Tools like that. So getting the right balance between something which is manageable on the technical side, but also comprehensible to the subject matter experts, I think is the balance that we're always struggling with here.
Yeah, and I think that a webinar like this may help solve a little bit. So a bit of training is required, and I guess from a developer and maintenance publishing side, this is really the easy way to do it, or a sustainable way of doing it. But then you're right, it needs some training and it needs some good habits, and that is more training, really, isn't it? So yeah.
So one of the things you can see that it has a massive flexibility how you manage the vocabularies. If you notice, all the vocabularies, each of the concept is a different file, turtle file, and then what we have done is basically based on their requirement we group them. So that's how basically on the viewer it shows different view. So basically that is managed here. And one of the thing about this is that it doesn't break much, because each of the concept is a one single file. If there is something terribly error, it's just one file kind of a thing. So that is the one flexibility where initially, when we start building the vocabularies, we started with the GitHub. Actually, what we did was we had like a complete concept scheme in a one file. And then it was a nightmare to merge, and then especially for the domain scientists, it was like such a uphill task, kind of a thing. So we have to abandon that process, partly because it was so hard for them to just to comprehend like a big turtle file kind of thing. So in this one, it's manageable. It's only one concept, one file. It's a manageable thing. So generally, when we give it, I completely agree with you, Simon. So what we do is we provide like a structure so that the people just, for a domain scientist, just enter like a fill in the blanks. They need to worry about only the definition kind of a thing. All the, the tags are there. They just need to enter, next to that. Because we are dealing with a one turtle file at a time kind of a thing. It's easy to validate as well if something, it's a missing apostrophe is missing, comma kind of things. It's very easy to pick up. It doesn't break the complete pipeline kind of a thing. So that is one of the advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is also why we have this kind of URL provided here. So if they are looking at our website, they can edit the concept directly in this link.
Yeah. So what we envisage that, we have built this, so people doesn't have to go to the GitHub to go to this one. Okay, most likely the user look at that in a web-friendly viewer kind of a thing. If they find, okay, there is something wrong, I want to edit, they just click on that one and edit kind of a thing. Yeah, so because it's already limited field, so whatever the fields are, it's a self-explanatory, at least, with the people who have worked with, they're a bit comfortable with that. If you want to ask them to write up like a complete, like a blank, page and ask them to write the complete thing, that is a difficult thing. So we have already, we generally give them a template kind of a thing. So it's just the entering the missing things.
So, thanks. Is there more questions around the same topic? Or perhaps I've got a question around the workflow you guys employ with your research community, basically about providing terms and concepts and the description thereof. What do you base it on? Is there a community that gives you all these terms and says, we want to use this concept, and can you provide the technical structure so we can build databases, repositories around that? Or how is that workflow from the community to publish vocabulary for you guys?
So this one, so the example what Jun is showing, so all this is derived from that 18 protocols built by the team in the TERN Adelaide. So all these vocabularies is created based on that protocols. So what the observable property in that protocols, that is what the observable property. That is why if you look at the viewer, it is basically managed very centric to that protocol. Jun, if you can go to that page. So basically vocabularies, you go back to the. So you can say attribute by modules. So that's what the module means, kind of a thing. Yeah. So each of the attributes in the modules, you can say, so basal area attribute and all those things are each of the modules. So these are all the modules, and then each of the attributes. So it's very biased towards that protocol. So basically, that is basically all this work is the vocabularizing the complete protocol. That's what this does. So that is how it is built. So for the normal term vocabularies, what we do is we are heavily influenced by what we are collecting, kind of a thing. It's and then we create a vocabularies of the observable. For example, if we take the observable property, what TERN is collecting as an observable property, we create a vocabularies of that and make that available for the community. So generally, people have a disagreement in the definition of those vocabularies, of those some concepts, some terms. So we basically update that based on their feedback. So the platforms and all are basically the TERN platforms. So for example, the flux towers, the ecological sites we run, we create a vocabularies of that, because it's a TERN created, we just create that. Again, if there is a some description or the definition people have, provide feedback, we update that. So one of the things what we basically want a bit of a community endorsement or the community feedback is on the feature type we create as part of the the information model what we build. So we make that available, and then very few times we get a bit of a feedback. We have updated that as well based on the feedback. But at least making that available, visible, it brings a bit of a feedback. So for example, if you look at, I can just talk about the Australian context. especially in the ecology domain, nobody has built such a comprehensive vocabularies what TERN has built. There are dispersed across the world as well. So for example, US LTR has got a bit of a set of vocabularies, and then EU, ELTR, European LTR has got a bit of a set of vocabularies. From an Australian context, we have built a fair bit of the vocabularies. And in the ecological concept, the definition changes as well between the continent as well. The terms, what they use, it changes as well between the continent. So those are the nuances generally we pick up in our vocabularies. So when we create these kind of vocabularies, we always put a relationship to the international vocabularies as well, so that it's easier for if somebody from the international community wants to use it or just to explore it, at least they can relate, okay, this is very similar to this in the USLTR, this in the ELTR, and this in the GCMD, this in the CF convention. That's what we did.
Yeah, nice. It's important to stay in touch with what the rest of the world does, isn't it?
Yeah.